my board, if they're here, as many of them that are here. If you're on the board of the Oregon City Business Alliance, could you stand up, please? Okay, so I know a lot of you see my face, and you're probably ready for a change as president. It's been, I think, my 8th year now in this role. But we have so many qualified individuals that work behind the scenes as well to put together these forums, to put together our speakers, to put together educational and outreach information. And so I just wanted to recognize them: Tim Wiest, Brian Shaw, Shelley Perini, and Renata Magelberg in the back. Thank you. I think Dan walked in there too. Thanks, Dan. And then we also have some elected officials here today. We have Oregon State Senator Bill Kennemer. Thank you for coming. And Oregon State Representative Mark Meek. Glad to see you here. And we also have a new Planning Commission member for the Oregon City Board, Bob LaSalle. Thank you for coming. So let's go ahead and get started today, and we are going to save time for questions and answers afterwards. So if you remember the blue cards on your tables, if you hear something that you want to follow up on with our speakers, go ahead and write it down, and Sherry in the back there will go ahead and pick up the cards, or someone will pick them up. But we do want to save about a half hour at the end for each and every one of your questions. So Tony's been the city manager since 2016. Prior to that time, he was the community development manager, and I believe that was for nearly 14 years. Is that correct? Yeah, for a total of 20 years here with the city. He basically earned the International City County Management Association, that's a mouthful, credential in 2021, and holds a Master of Urban and Regional Planning from Portland State University and a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Studies from Rollins College in Winter Park, Florida. So thank you, Tony, for being here today. And then we also have Economic Development Manager James Graham. James has over 25 years of experience in economic development. He's worked for the federal government, several state governments, county governments, a myriad of local municipalities, regional agencies, and various private nonprofit organizations. He believes in systematic, sustainable, and tailored economic growth while seeking to collaborate with public and private organizations to proliferate the benefits of appropriate development. James is a certified economic developer recognized by the International Economic Development Council. So there you go. We have some excellent speakers with us today. So I'd like to welcome them. I think we're going to start out with you, Tony. So I'm going to go ahead and give you my microphone, and you have the floor. There you go.
All right, is that picking it up all right? Everybody here? Okay, great. Well, good afternoon. It's really a pleasure to be invited back and have the opportunity to present to you today. I'd like to thank the Oregon City Business Alliance for the invitation to present today, and each of you for taking the time to come out and attend. I'm going to ask you today to take a moment to recognize and learn about the projects and accomplishments the City of Oregon City has undertaken to keep the community vibrant, active, and engaged, capitalizing on opportunities while working through multiple challenges. I'll also share with you the ways the Commission is planning to make Oregon City a model of equity and inclusion, increase participation and engagement, make investments to support sustainable infrastructure, and protect and preserve environmental health. 2021 taught us all that we are resilient. We're turning the challenges of the past year, and there were many, COVID, the ice storm, demonstrations, into opportunities. Opportunities to transform our city, and that will address the needs of today as well as years to come. I would like to take this moment to recognize and thank the city staff for their professionalism and dedication to the organization and the community over the last 2 years. It has been trying on everybody. I would also like to thank the talented group of directors that are helping guide staff and me as we deliver projects and programs, create and implement policy, and address challenges as they arise. I'd like to recognize Interim Community Development Director Aquila Hurd-Ravitch, Library Director Greg Williams, City Recorder Jacob Wiley, Police Chief Jim Band, Public Works Director John Lewis, Parks and Rec Director Kendall Reed, Finance Director Matt Zook, and Human Resources Director Patrick Foyles. I really do appreciate all their efforts. I would not be able to accomplish anything without the assistance of all of them. Special thanks to my administrative support team of one, Lisa Riskovich, helping guide special projects at the city, and she's been filling in with the city's recorder department. I'd also like to thank Kristen Brown, the city's communication manager, for not only expanding the reach of the city's message, but helping to prepare today's presentation. I'm so proud that I have a staff that is quick, inspiring, and always puts the community's needs first. Without question, the past 22 months have been challenging both personally and professionally. A time of loss, hardship, and change. The stress of community members losing their jobs, of losing loved ones or friends, of losing a sense of belonging and connectedness after months and months of staying at home has taxed all of us. Unfortunately, that stress may be with us for a while longer. As much as we might want to think COVID is over, we are still dealing with it daily. That's why we stand strong in our efforts to keep our employees and community members safe. If you are entering our facilities, please wear your mask and maintain social distance, as I have asked staff to be in our facilities for over a year and a half, providing access for the public and providing services. I do ask that basic measures necessary to maintain their health and safety are respected. As with many changes that have occurred in response to COVID, our staff continues to offer virtual services to our community, which has increased access and is a technology change that has become part of the daily operations of the city. Early in 2021, our commissioners took on the biannual task of setting goals and priorities and adopting the two-year budget. Through many hours and multiple days, these goals and priorities were debated and fleshed out to include the following. Promote diversity, equity, and inclusion for a safe, inclusive community and organization. Invest in current and future capital needs for safe, sustainable infrastructure and city services. Improve the city's engagement effort to reach the broader Oregon City community and inform the policy process. Adopt and implement a homeless strategy for Oregon City. Promote tourism and support economic development to foster community sustainability. Support diverse housing options in Oregon City. Support improvements and partnerships that contribute to our hometown feel and showcase Oregon City's unique community identity. And protect and preserve our environmental health and natural resources. And I'm just going to pause for 1 second because I want to make sure the Zoom is correct. Because Kent, I'm looking at you eating lunch, and I just want him. Are you good back there? Yeah. Okay.
But if you would stand a little to the left, then you
Perfect. There we go.
You're right. You're right.
Get my sunglasses here. I'll share with you. I'll go ahead and get started again here. I'll share with you ways we've worked to achieve these worthy goals and future programs, projects, and operations that will continue to affect change and meet the needs of our community. I could talk for quite a while about each of these, but I've chosen a few to share with you today. Starting with homelessness. We should all be proud of the care we have provided to our unhoused neighbors during the pandemic and over the past few years. Over the past few years, through the help of Oregon City's Homeless Liaison Officer and Behavioral Health Specialist, we have helped transition people out of homelessness and into housing. But clearly and without question, there is much more to do. We're going to continue to work with the tools that we have and strive to create new partnerships with other agencies and nonprofits, with a goal of lifting people out of homelessness over the next 2 years, including those who are living on our streets in unsafe and unhealthy conditions. Chief Ban will be presenting an updated approach to the homeless situation to the City Commission later this spring, which include tools and ideas such as housing vouchers, wraparound services, and programs that can help keep people from falling into homelessness in the first place. The goals of the Commission create opportunities for a more equitable tomorrow. We've been able to stream online and allow digital participation in our committee and commission meetings, a practice we will continue to provide. Offering a hybrid style of participation allows the busy parent with no after-5 child care the opportunity to provide public comment, or the student finishing their day at school the chance to listen and participate as they transition to their job. Embracing technology to expand the city's reach and the public's ability to participate has been one result of the pandemic that pushed us to rethink how we operate. We are looking for ways to continue our equity approach, and in 2022, you'll notice a change in our Parks and Recreation fee structure. After a public engagement process and considerable analysis, we've adopted a policy that targets the investment of our limited funds, helping subsidize programs and amenities with the greatest public benefit and community need, while reducing subsidies in more individualized classes and programs. Our staff is building a diversity, equity, and inclusion team that will help take feedback from community members on ways the city can lead with an equity-first approach. We look forward to you, as community members invested in Oregon City, to help lend your voice and make space for opportunities and improvements. The library is launching the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program, which will help give parents, caregivers, and kids the tools and support they need to create young readers. This program is geared to help young children develop critical early literacy skills and become lifelong readers. The 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program is made possible by the generous support of the Oregon City Library Foundation and the Friends of the Oregon City Library. We are grateful for their continued support as we work to create lifelong readers from our youngest generations throughout our community. We've heard loud and clear that the citizens of Oregon City value the place they call home. And through the OC 2040 Comprehensive Plan Update, which has brought many voices to the table, we focused on 4 core values to help guide the future of Oregon City: healthy and welcoming communities, a diverse economy, connected infrastructure, and a protected environment. Each of these values represents a chapter in the new OC 2040 plan, which will streamline the existing comprehensive plan and make it more intuitive and user-friendly document. Comprehensive plans are intended to be a high-level policy document that creates the city's 20-year vision and guides city decisions and work plans. Part of city staff's approach for this update is to reduce the overall bulk of the document by keeping goals and policies at a higher level and removing short-term implementation measures that are not conducive to a 20-year planning horizon. This ensures the comprehensive plan can be implemented through the development of more specific and targeted action plans, projects, and programs directed by the City Commission. This work is still being done, and we appreciate your efforts and participation to make this plan a usable document for the next 20 years. Affordable housing is an area of local, regional, state, and national importance, and the city is working to implement statewide affordable housing regulations consistent with the needs of our community. That's why one of the City Commission goals of supporting diverse housing options in Oregon City is so important. We've done an excellent job in 2019 to expand the options for middle housing in some residential zones. For instance, duplexes are now allowed on all corner lots. Triplexes and fourplexes and townhomes are now allowed in the smaller residential zoning districts. This increase in housing types offers a variety of price points and building sizes, expanding the options available for housing in Oregon City. House Bill 2001 is going to be immensely impactful as it expands a whole slate of middle housing to all residential areas. The city does have some flexibility in implementing the code changes related to the House bill, such as in geologic hazard areas and addressing lot sizes, setbacks, parking, and lot coverage. Adoption hearings are scheduled for May through March this year to meet the summer deadline for adoption of these code regulations. Although this is a great step in the right direction, We are aware that the lack of housing supply and rising housing costs will require more work and effort at the local, state, and national level. The Oregon City Quiet Zone was selected to be included in the 2022 Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development Funding Package, one of only 3 projects in Oregon to make the list. This is an exciting development, and thanks to the partnership with the Downtown Oregon City Association and the help of Congressman Schrader, downtown Oregon City could be a lot quieter, and crossing the tracks could be safer for walkers and drivers. This isn't a done deal yet. The House Appropriations Committee heard the package this summer and is waiting for approval from the Senate and the President's signature on the proposed package. If the Quiet Zone is funded, our hope is that it will spur housing developments in downtown, which will help bolster and support our existing businesses and allow employees to live where they work. We are grateful for Congressman Schrader's support and hope that this project can be funded to help diversify and increase housing in downtown Oregon City. Infrastructure is multi-generational. It creates the structures and facilities that in turn create safe multimodal travel options, reliable water and sewer, and foster investment and development. The Malala Avenue Streetscape project wrapped up this winter, and we thank you for your patience. We know how impactful the detour and closures were to the community and business owners. Our water infrastructure was upgraded as part of this project. A new 18-inch water line spans the entire corridor, and a new 8-inch water line at the north end of the project has replaced aging distribution lines. The Streetscape project provides over 4,000 feet of new sidewalk, providing safe walkways for those in wheelchairs, strollers, or traveling on foot. Over 2 miles of new buffered bike lanes were added to allow safe space for bikers. Upgraded bus shelters, new street lamps, benches, and 47 new ADA-compliant curb ramps now can be enjoyed by our entire community. We've received the most feedback about the mid-block pedestrian-activated crossings, as getting from one side of Malala to the other has been difficult for those living in and around the area. Residents now have a safer way to access service, jobs, and restaurants in this heavily utilized corridor. We want to thank Metro and our community for the grant funding to help pay for portions of this project. Just a few weeks ago, our Oregon City Engineering and Operations Complex opened to the public. This has long been a goal of our elected officials and staff to house our Public Works Division under one roof. And because of the nature of the site, we were able to house the Parks and Recreation Maintenance Division at the site as well. The $13 million construction project redeveloped 4.7-acre property with a 53,000 square foot warehouse and 26,000 feet of office space. This project was also a great example of reusing an existing building, keeping thousands of yards of debris from going to the dump. I'm very proud that we've made this investment without going to the public for a bond or taking on any additional debt. The investment is from utility and parks funding saved for many years through the fiscal management of our departments. Thank you to John Lewis, our Public Works Director, for his time, energy, and efforts to make this a site that will serve our residents, but also grow as the city's needs evolve and increase. Our parks infrastructure was expanded last year with the addition of Tyrone S. Woods Memorial Park. The 9-acre park was envisioned by Oregon City community to be accessible to all ages and abilities. The park includes site amenities such as winding loop pathways, open lawn areas, a public picnic shelter, benches, a nature playground, and a fenced off-leash dog park. Subsequent phases are planned to include pickleball courts and skate amenities. The Oregon City VFW Post 1324 helped make the grand opening event an honorable, memorable, and patriotic event, and thanks to their generous donation, you can read about Tyrone S. Wood's legacy at the park. I hope you've been able to enjoy this gem of a park in our city and learn about the sacrifices that have been made on our behalf. We were so proud to reopen the revitalized DC Latterette Park last summer, which is now home to a new nature play area, upgraded walking paths, refurbished basketball court entryway, and additional seating. These upgrades and additions were the vision of Oregon City Girl Scout Troop 45064. They stepped up to lead a community process to update the park and make it accessible for children and adults at all ability levels. Thanks to the Latterette Core Team, a mix of neighborhood members and park enthusiasts who helped bring this park back to life. Also this summer, we broke ground on the Hazel Grove Park in the Hazel Grove Westling Farm neighborhood. We found early on it was important to the neighbors to keep the most active areas of the future park centrally located, such as the shelter and children's nature play area. It was also very important to cause minimal impact to the existing tree canopy. We were able to maximize the available open lawn for active recreational opportunities. This new park, slated to open in the next few months, will upgrade drainage facilities to improve water quality and allow for new routes to help residents access the park more easily. The Clackamas Park master planning work is just in its early phases, and we look forward to visiting with the community to make this space enjoyable for those visiting, boating, fishing, picnic, kayaking, and everything else that we use this dynamic park for. In the summer of 2021, we, in partnership with Clackamas County, launched the Clackamas County Connect shuttle service that provides vital connection to our communities and areas that are hard to get to by transit. This service provides a critical last-mile connection between services provided by TriMet and our community. Our staff is continuing to refine the routes to meet the needs of transit riders to help get to work, school, and home through a seamless system of transportation options. I imagine you've heard a lot about the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA for short. ARPA provided nearly $350 billion to states, tribes, territories, counties, and cities. Of that $350 billion, $65 million was allocated to local government and municipalities, and Oregon City will receive about $8.3 million to help recover from the impacts of COVID-19. Staff is working with the City Commission to allocate these ARPA funds to help city services bounce back and provide a more resilient future. Even through the hardest times, Oregon City pulls together and looks out for one another. We've been humbled by the generous donations from the VFW and the Oregon City Women's Group to help fund the Veterans Memorial Plaza at the Mountain View Cemetery. The Oregon City Optimist Club gathered their members and volunteers to help clean up debris from those that were physically unable or lacked resources to remove limbs and trees after the 2021 ice storm. We heard from many residents that the limb and tree drop-off site spun up by our city staff was a saving grace when faced with piles of fallen limbs and trees in their yards. An incredible 43,000 cubic yards of woody debris was collected, processed, and removed from this site. There were many stories shared of neighbors helping neighbors clean up, check in, and care for those who were without power or resources throughout many cold and icy days. The immediate challenges of the moment will try to force us to keep our heads down. But with vision and great leadership, we lift our heads and see a better tomorrow, and provides us the opportunity to build a better tomorrow. The resiliency that defines us, the Oregon City spirit that welcomes challenges and creates opportunity, is back and stronger than ever before. That is our path forward. Now I'll hand this over to our Economic Development Manager, James Grand, for his presentation. And thank you so much for taking the time today. Really appreciate it.
Testing. Well, first of all, let me say Happy New Year. 2022, who would have guessed it? I usually don't eat before I give a presentation because I like to enjoy my food on the way down, not the other way around. So I can only smell the food and how good it might have been to you. The city manager covered a lot of accomplishments, important accomplishments that this city has undergone, and there's no small feat. It's hard doing this stuff, and it's important that we celebrate these accomplishments because they are very important and should not be taken lightly. So today, at this point, now I will talk about the future and what we should do and what we must do. First of all, let's start with the definition of economic development. Next slide, please. The definition of economic development, I've been using this definition for about 30 years, and it hasn't it hasn't proven me wrong yet. Economic development is a strategic and collaborative process that creates an environment that systemically supports new investment, creates and/or retains jobs, and broadens the tax base, therefore improving the quality of people, quality of life of people. Next slide, please. During this presentation, we will be talking about the vision of economic development, the assessment of Oregon City's economy, an overview of the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats, and primary economic development strategies that we will undertake as we implement this economic development strategy. And let me say, this is the first economic development strategy the city has ever had that we're actually implementing. And so we're implementing it as we speak. And we're not holding back, and we're going full force. So therefore, the vision of this economy is by 2027, Oregon City has a robust, resilient, and diversified economy. Residents live, work, and play while having access to multiple amenities within the region. Businesses flourish due to a business-friendly environment that supports for-profit enterprise and nurtures private nonprofit entities. For anyone who seeks employment, investments made by for-profit and nonprofit organizations provide opportunities for upward mobility through job creation and technical skill training. Next slide, please. Our economy is diversified. Most of the workforce is employed in public administration, about 25% of our workforce. We have approximately 17,800 people in the Oregon City workforce, approximately 1,500 businesses in Oregon City. Now, it's with so many people in public administration, which is a very good and noble role. But usually, in order to grow a resilient economy, it's not necessarily a good thing that so many people are employed in public administration. Because the fact of the matter is, a growing economy is not dependent on the local public sector to do well. It requires all of us to do well, and then the public sector will certainly thrive. Next slide, please. In terms, going on with the assessment, our population growth is modest, 1% annually, and that's where you want to be, 1 to 2%. You don't want to grow at very fast rates because that creates all kinds of other issues for the community. The city has a diverse economy, but not diverse enough. Small businesses here have an average of 10 employees or fewer. Wages in Oregon City are growing. The highest paying jobs are in protective services. A greater portion of community's population, as I said, work in public service. Relative to the county, residents of Oregon City tend not to finish a higher level of education beyond high school. Next slide, please. In terms of employment or unemployment, in 2020, as you all will remember, it was a disaster of a year. And we bottomed out in terms of having 6.7% of our population unemployed. As of September 2021, it diminished greatly at 4%. And in October of 2021, our unemployment rate stands at 3.3%. So we're going in the right direction as it relates to unemployment. However, it is still some challenges in our economy. Our average, in terms of median household income, the Clackamas County median household income stands at $76,000. In Oregon City, it stands at $71,000, and in Oregon, as a state, 55, I believe. That's 55 or 59. It's kind of hard to see with colors since I'm colorblind. Next slide, please. A SWOT analysis. Now, when we view our economy, I view myself really as a physician looking at its patient. And we want to look at what helps the patient and what ails the patient, and prescribe a solution to whatever ails it. In terms of our strengths, Oregon City has a good location. We're close enough to Portland, and we're far enough from Portland, and also the rest of the region. Transportation infrastructure assets are another strength of our community. You can move goods and services, particularly outside and inside the community, with relatively good easy ease because of our infrastructure network. The cost of doing business is relatively less in Oregon City than many other places around the region. Tourism, access to outdoor recreation. The Willamette River is an amazing asset, and we should never take it for granted. Everything we do, everything we are, is because of that river. And we should use that asset in order to grow our economy and our tourism economy. Our parks are extremely important to us, and we should value them and utilize them to the greatest extent possible. Our weaknesses, we have a few. We have every other month, I get a call from a developer or someone who really wants a large parcel of land, a minimum of 15 acres. We don't have 15 acres. We need flex space, a lot of that. A lot of people want flex space, between 50 to 100,000 square feet. They would prefer an existing building. We don't have that either. Next slide, please. Our opportunities. Our tourism and outdoor recreation presents also an opportunity for us. How many hamburgers can you eat? We need new experiences. We need something to do in this community. We need more experiences for our young people, because we're looking at 3 market segments as it relates to tourism. We're looking at people between the ages, young people, individuals, usually 18 to 25, who are looking for exploration, who are looking for excitement, who are looking for something to do outside. We're also looking at a segment who are baby boomers, between the ages of 45 to 55 to 60, baby boomers. And they're looking for, yes, good restaurants, but they also want to have also good experiences. Older individuals, 70 plus, they have disposable income, fine dining, outdoor recreation, but not too much. The types of experiences where they can shop and expend some of that disposable income. We have threats. The pending relocation of our courthouse downtown is a threat to the downtown. And when that moves, although it will still remain in Oregon City, a lot of the businesses downtown will suffer and miss the absence of that important facility. The rising cost of development, we have to watch this, because it will either stop us in our tracks or certainly slow us down. Skilled labor force constraints. I don't have to tell any of you who own a business or are running a private nonprofit how difficult it is to attract employees these days. And it's not as a consequence of the government paying them a lot of money to stay out of work. That's too easy. A lack of child care. Some people have decided to just retire. And others had an epiphany. We want to do something else with our lives. We don't want this low-paying job. But we want better jobs. We want better employment. Child care. Who would have ever thought that child care would be a constraint? For child care has always been a constraint, but when the pandemic hit, it became, instead of one person's problem, it became everybody's problem. And then it became important. So when you help child care, and we intend to help child care, you help all industries, not just child care, because everyone needs someone to watch their children while they're working. The perception of a business-friendly environment is crucial not only to the present time, but also to the future time. Because people will remember you in terms of how you treated them and how you help them. They may not care too much about your logo, but they will care about how you treated them and their business. And they will tell their friends and their other investors, and that will go a long way. So we have to be concerned about being a business-friendly environment. Next slide, please. We have several strategies that we will implement. In regard to business retention and expansion, workforce development is high on our list. We will be launching and working with a number of agencies to launch what we call Talent Ready Initiative. Now, we've been working on this for a long time, and we know this is a heavy lift. We've been working with and talking to a lot of organizations that are engaged in educating and training individuals. But we've also, in talking with all of these entities, they have told us some things about themselves. They're a little bit surprising to us. Now, this is not what we're saying. It's what these entities have been saying to us. These public entities say that there's a lack of marketing and promotion dollars, so therefore we're doing all this work, but no one knows we're doing it. They're also saying that the forms are all different, but trying to get the same information. They're also saying that too many choices of assistance that few people know about. And this is my favorite, bureaucracies believing in their own hype. You see, what we have learned is the workforce development system is very personal. These entities work together because they know each other. They have relationships with each other. But what's lacking is a systemic approach to helping the client. And it's important that we forget about the logos, but help the client and focus on their needs. So they know the full breadth and depth of experience, of resources available to them that they simply just don't know. There are too many choices, and they don't know all those choices. So people just, instead of wrestling with the bureaucracy, they throw their hands up and say, forget it. And that's what happens. In terms of childcare, I mentioned childcare and wanting the need to help with childcare. We intend to launch a forgivable loan program to help childcare facilities lower the cost of childcare to parents. Now, more detail will come out about this program, but it's an important investment to the future of our community, and I hope you will support us in this initiative. An ombudsman business advocacy program, a program that will help developers and others know about our regulatory processes, hopefully before they get started, and help them also go through the regulatory process and then also look at regulatory issues that have been on the books for years, but for no reason they still exist. Our business attraction component, we have decided to target only 5 industries: light manufacturing or assemblage, logistics, healthcare, technical services, and tourism. You can't be all things to everybody, but these industries, if we focus our attention on them, will help Oregon City's economy. We will implement a business attraction strategy for these entities and focus our attention and our energies to attract them. The Urban Renewal District. The City Commission, or the Urban Renewal Commission, is currently working on a vision and a framework for decision making. We're 50% there. But the next step, of course, is to develop, and I should say update the plan itself, and then put it to a vote to the voters. So the voters will have to decide whether they want urban renewal. But urban renewal, let there not be any mistake, is your major investment tool. Without it, the tools you have available are very limited. Fiber optic network. This is actually very important, the infrastructure of the 21st century. We want to be able to connect not only businesses but homes to a fiber optic network, dealing with one vendor that cares about servicing the customer. And by providing the kinds of service and the kinds of the facility that will make a difference. As you know, many people are staying home now, and you have several people on computers. And so therefore, it's important that there's the capacity to carry through. Entrepreneurship. We have to help our small businesses, our startups. We're losing them. We've lost a lot of small businesses because of the pandemic. So we will establish partnerships with technical assistance agencies. We will have a small business procurement initiative because our own city government spends $10 million on goods and services. And we need to involve our small business community in those types of purchases. And we'll also institute a small business growth and retention fund for our small businesses, something that's patient money. Because a lot of times when businesses go to a bank or something like that, the money is expected to be repaid almost right away. It's patient money. Urban renewal, once again, we've spoken to that, but it is a process in the making. Tourism. We want to include the private sector and the public sector together at the same table, more of both, and not simply the nonprofit entity. Tourism is a very serious business. It's not a hobby. And we have to look at it, and we have to bring up the professionalism in tourism if we're going to make inroads for this important industry. Our brand is Oregon's hometown. Welcome home. And you've seen probably some of the commercials that have already been played, but expect more. We will attract new businesses that provide more experiences. And then, of course, establish the Oregon City Arts Commission, and murals, once again, will be in Oregon City. It's my pleasure to share with you this plan today, and I hope you will support us as we do something very different for Oregon City. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to come on up. James and Tony, if you want to go ahead and go to the podium, and if you could go ahead and share a microphone, I'll go ahead and get started on some of the questions. But before that, I'd like to have everybody give both of them a very warm thank you, applause. Great presentations by both of you. Very informative, love the PowerPoints. We'll be able to provide anyone that would like to have access to those PowerPoint slides for later review or possibly sharing with your own organizations. We'll be able to provide that to you. Just put a request into us and we'll make sure that you get that as soon as possible. So, could we turn the lights up a little bit, please? And at that, also, don't forget the blue cards for the questions. There's your opportunity. We've got the city manager and the economic development manager with us in person today. So capitalize on your chance you have to go ahead and ask some questions. I see Tim Cook is busy scribbling away over there already. Good for you, Tim. All right. Well, let's start with tourism. You know, James, you made a comment about how important it is for tourism, especially in Oregon City as the capital of the Oregon Territory. Really some unique attributes that go along with Oregon City, especially being on the Willamette River as well. Recently, the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde now has reached out to various stakeholders to start a engagement interview process to get their input and ideas as to how their aspect of the former Blue Heron site should go forward. What, in your opinion, is the city's role with them on their part of the project, and where's the city now with the design and initial construction of the Riverwalk?
Well, you take that.
So Grand Ronde, everybody is well aware, Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde purchased the Blue Heron property from George Heideggerken. Our role on the private property side, we see as helping facilitate and work with the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde to implement the original vision document that was adopted on that property. I believe they're getting prepared to submit, to make some amendments to that master plan. So really from the local agency perspective, it's really trying to work with them to understand what their vision is, what their use is for the property, what they'd like to see on that property, and then help facilitate through that public process to get that master plan that was previously adopted, amended to implement their vision for the property. As far as the public Riverwalk component, the partners did ask us to work with all 5 recognized tribes in the state of Oregon to look at if there were changes to how that partnership was set up. It was originally set up at the very beginning. I think we're going back 11 to 12 years, 2001, February 2001, I believe Blue Heron went bankrupt. And at that time, it made sense that we worked with a bankruptcy trustee, and we had the ability to bring together the state, Metro, Clackamas County, and the city to really try to envision what that property could become, try to tackle some of those, whether it was zoning issues, access issues that were on the site. And at that time and place, that model worked really well. And so now the question is, is that partnership the correct model, and what should that partnership be made up with? So that's where we're at right now, is consulting with each of the Native American tribes to get their perspectives related to that project.
James, you want to add anything to that?
What he said.
Okay, ditto. And as a follow-up, and you may not be able to respond to this fully, but recently there was a press release about an issue where a memorial plaque was going to be located recognizing the deaths of earlier ancestors of the tribe. Has that been resolved? Because they were talking about a possible delay that could cost the project millions of dollars in funding from the state if it wasn't resolved.
I think there's, well, not without reading the article that you're referring to, I think we have 2 simultaneous things occurring. We talked a little bit about the redevelopment of the Blue Heron site as well as the Riverwalk project. Those are the discussions that we're having of how each of the tribes, their perspective, how they can be incorporated into that process. The commission approved as part of their goals for this biennium was a memorial to the Cayuse 5. So the Cayuse 5 were hung in Oregon City on Main Street, and so trying to identify a proper memorial and location for that memorial to be located. And so once again, we had initially identified a property. Once we started having those conversations, there were some concerns from a cultural resource perspective with the location. So we're working with the affected tribes to try to find a location that's suitable and meets everyone's needs. So a little overlap maybe in those questions, but they are really 2 separate projects.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you sharing with us what information you have on that. Stay tuned. Also, let's pick up, James, you were pretty convicted in your comment about how important urban renewal is as a resource to the city in order to help facilitate new development in blighted areas or areas that have been ignored. And Oregon City is one of 7 regional centers in the Tri-County region that have been identified for major commercial investment, similar to Cruz Way and Lake Oswego is a regional center, Clackamas Town Center. At this point, is the city doing anything to try to help facilitate major developments in the North End area, including the landfill, as part of that regional center?
Thank you for the question. To answer your question directly, right now at this point, we're working with this Urban Renewal Commission to develop their vision for the Urban Renewal District, and also a framework for making decisions on projects, because that's important. Projects should not come to us in a way where the first one who meets the Urban Renewal Commission gets the project. It's not a first come, first served kind of deal. The Urban Renewal Commission wants to look at projects and determine the best projects for their vision once they decided to proceed with the urban renewal district and its plan. But at this point, we need to do those things I just mentioned. We need to update the plan, and then the commission itself needs to make a big decision as to whether or not it's going to proceed with urban renewal and then take it to the voters for a vote. So there are still a few more steps to go, but that's where we are.
Okay, and the North End Urban Renewal Plan, I believe that's the only plan that's in existence for urban renewal in Oregon City right now.
That's correct.
Are there any other urban renewal districts that the city is being approached about or considering implementing to help facilitate redevelopment of existing facilities?
Not at this point.
Okay. And what are the timelines as you see it that the commission will be taking a vote or at least discussing in further detail what the vision is for the urban renewal district?
Well, the Urban Renewal Commission has done a great deal of work, and there's lots, there's much more to be done. I hesitate to give a timeline because you cannot predict policymakers, and that's a losing bet. So we will just have to allow them the space to make the decisions that are important for the urban renewal district.
Okay. And recently, the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde on the Blue Heron site was able to receive federal EPA funding to do an environmental assessment and initial cleanup. Would the city ever consider working with a private developer to apply for federal funding, state grants, as a landfill being a brownfield site, or something that has environmental cleanup that's necessary to deal with the fill that have been placed there?
You want to answer?
I think we'd have to just understand what the project is. I'm not an expert on brownfield funding, but if there are funds available, and this is something that, whether it's the Urban Renewal Commission or the City Commission is deemed as a project they're going to be a partner in, we would obviously try to identify all funding sources that would be available to us.
Have you done any identification of any funding sources similar to what the Confederate Tribes of the Grand Ronde received?
We have not, no.
Okay. But the city would consider doing that?
If it was a project that the commission or the Urban Renewal Commission decided was one that they were going to work with, yes.
Okay. You heard that, folks? Get your projects in line. All right, let's change horses here. Tolling is a major issue that Oregon City, Westland is going to be probably dealing with. We're getting more and more confirmation that ODOT is going to go ahead and implement these tolls, and there's really no sunset to them. In their opinions, the tolls need to stay in place in order to manage congestion pricing, to relieve peak traffic. Obviously, diversion is something that County Commissioner Paul Savas was able to get ODOT to delay a decision on, but only for 30 days, to try to determine what mitigation is taking place to deal with the diversion onto downtown city streets like Main Street in Oregon City. What's the city's position, and what are you actively doing to participate in those discussions?
So the mayor's involved with C4 as well as the Metro Policy Advisory Committee that's reviewing the plans for tolling from ODOT. The commission is going to be considering a resolution next Wednesday, similar to resolutions passed by Westland, Lake Oswego, and other jurisdictions, asking ODOT to take a more comprehensive look at tolling and their justifications for it, how it's being implemented. We also have staff that are on two separate task force as part of this project, looking at exactly what you're talking about in terms of not only the project design, but the traffic impact study related to the diversion and what those impacts are. So our involvement is through being involved in that process and bringing forward the position of the commission related to some of these larger policy questions that are obviously going to be very impactful on jurisdictions adjacent to not only 205 but all throughout the region.
Yeah, they are going to be impactful. There's no doubt about it. I don't think we've really we've just seen the tip of the iceberg as to how much additional traffic could be diverted onto the Arch Bridge to avoid paying the tolls. Speaking of the Arch Bridge in downtown, we just have a question, and I know both of you touched on it. What is being done about the courthouse situation? And obviously, the new courthouse is moving forward. We understand that they received state funding for that. Are you looking to interview potential buyers or occupants of the courthouse, or is that would be a county
It'd be a
decision?
county issue. We have reached out to the county, letting them know our interest in having discussions about what happens with the courthouse, and it's exactly to have these, what is the plan here? Is it going to be to sell the property off for private development? Is it going to be that the county keeps it? Is it going to be another public agency or a nonprofit buys it? We obviously have interest in Liberty Plaza, one of the only open spaces downtown on Main Street. So, you know, we've identified those issues and wanting to talk with the county. Right now, you know, they're open to those conversations, but really wanted to make sure that they were far enough along on actually making that move up to Red Soils Court with the courthouse before we begin those more in-depth conversations about what do you do with that building, what does it become, who gets it, and whatnot.
Okay, good. Kind of changing topics again here. Have you had any recent conversations with Metro pertaining to the future of the transfer station? I've read an article recently where quite a substantial amount of land, industrial land in the Clackamas area on Jennifer Street was sold, where they're planning on doing close to 1 million square feet of industrial space. Do you know if that was the same site that Metro was considering placing the transfer station on?
I'm aware that there was a site in that area. My understanding is that during the feasibility study of the property, it was determined not to be an appropriate site. So I think we're back to kind of where in that process. So at this point, there have not been any additional conversations. It seems like it's kind of a reset in looking for potential properties for the relocation of the transfer station.
So for now, it's staying put?
For now, it's staying put as far as we know. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, I've only had one question. There must be some other questions out there from our audience, at least one question that I can see here. Oh, Kim, you want to bring me up your card? Okay, let's see. How large is the new industrial park going to be across from the college? Any businesses moving there that you can mention? Is the land available for expansion up to the Oregon City Golf Course?
You want to take that?
You know, economic development is very much like working the Secret Service. You can't talk about it. And a lot of conversation is going on behind the scenes. So I would be remiss to give too much information. But there are important conversations because that, as I mentioned in the presentation, we need larger tracts of land. And we, at minimum 15 acres, and we just don't have it. That area you just mentioned is one of the few areas that we have left. So it's an important discussion that we're having.
Okay. Good, I hope all that comes together. All right, here we go, another one from the audience. Is anything happening with the second or third phase of the Cove project?
Right now, we're going through a process of trying to mitigate the issue of those algae blooms. And we've hired a company to take a look at the hydraulics, the hydraulic science of it. So they will be beginning their process very soon. So yes, to answer your question, but first we have to deal with the water, making sure it's quality and it's safe.
And do you have an idea as to how long that process will take?
I think it was, what, 6 months?
6 months plus another 6.
Yeah.
Okay, and that was with Restore Cap?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Good, well, hopefully we'll see that coming out of the ground, because phase one looks like it's completely occupied. Okay, the 2022 lighting on the elevator was very cool. Any plans for more?
Oh, absolutely. We really have to up our game in terms of the way we look as a city, as a community. We have to improve the way we put our foot out there. because Oregon City is in danger of being, when sometimes you get nose blind when you smell something all so often, it's beginning to be blind to the way it looks. And we have to up our game. We have to spruce up the place. I would love to see lights on the arch bridge, on the arch portion. I would love to see banners all over the city indicating that something is happening. And we are opening Oregon City to tourism. We would love to see all kinds of new initiatives that will make Oregon City look better, because it's a beautiful city, simply by God's grace. But now, we have an opportunity now to make it a place that looks very good and is welcoming. So we look forward to that. And that's why we've implemented this tourism strategy to help implement that, and thanks to the Commission for allowing us some resources to start that process.
So speaking of resources, out of all the federal funding that has been sent to the states and then to the counties, could you tell us what portion of that pie Oregon City has received, is expected to receive, and how you anticipate spending that money?
I think generally $8 million. I'll let the city manager tell you.
Yeah, so it's been, the federal regulations were just recently completed in January, actually, of this year. I think we originally had an estimate of about 7.6 million or so. We ended up getting about, I think it was just under 8.3 million. We were pretty confident. When ARPA started, there were actually 4 buckets that were pretty prescriptive. And so through that budgeting process, we were fairly confident for roughly, $6.5 million. A significant portion of that was put into water infrastructure. We have a pretty significant capital improvement plan for water upgrades. And then the rest was allocated by lost revenue. So some went into ECDEV, some went into tourism, some went into transportation for lost gas tax revenue. In January, we received an update of the actual number we would get, which would be roughly 8.3 million. And so that's just the process that we're beginning now. So really a lot of that money has been allocated through the budget process already. And really it's that remainder that we weren't sure how, when we get audited, how that money had to be accounted for. And so we just actually had our first meeting with the commission last week to kind of start thinking about where can we allocate those funds, what type of projects would you like to do with the funds that are remaining. So we received the first half of the money, so we currently have on hand. We would expect to receive the second half of the money sometime this summer.
And those meetings that you had with the commission, were they open to the public?
Yep.
Okay. And how long do you feel that these public engagement hearings will continue before they make a decision?
I imagine there'll be several more.
Well, we're gonna have to let every one of you know when those hearings are so you can be there and put forth your recommendations. Okay, well, Jerry, you might want to hear about this question. You spoke about the importance of the river and tourism, being business friendly. Can you update us on the negotiations with Sportcraft Landing? I know there's an issue with the federal government who wants to do the seismic upgrades to the bridge, and city increasing the rent, and different issues.
Yep. Yeah, so we're still working with Sportcraft to get a signed contract for use of the property. Don't really have much more to add.
Okay.
We worked with ODOT. They have all the property that they need for the I-205 expansion. This is really a negotiation between a tenant and a landlord at this point.
And was there a lawsuit actually filed in regards to that negotiation?
My understanding was that there was a lawsuit filed by ODOT related to the condemnation.
Okay.
And we've been able to address that issue that they had. Once again, they have the property that they need. It was really where do they put the money until Sportcraft and Oregon City figure out their contract.
Okay. Because I just remember reading that their lease amount was going up substantially.
Yep.
But it was based on an appraisal.
It was based on an appraisal, correct?
Yeah. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. What is the status of the proposed bike pedestrian bridge across the Willamette River?
Sure. So, Oregon City and West Linn, so the Oregon City Commission and the West Linn Council got together with ODOT for a joint work session, really trying to look at were there options, what were those locations for a potential bike ped connection between the two jurisdictions, realizing the limitations of the existing Oregon City West Linn Bridge. And through that process of that, through that joint work session, each agency agreed to take that back to their respective council or commission to have a discussion about whether they wanted to support that type of a project. And if they did, if both jurisdictions did, we would be moving forward with amending our master plan. So example, our transportation system plan would be amended to include, this type of a project. So we're hoping to get that back in front of the commission probably in February or March for the Oregon City discussion about where the commissioners stand related to that potential connection.
And is there a funding source already in place for that?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
No, okay.
Well, you think about our master plans. I mean, one of the first steps is to get it into a master plan so that you can then go and get funding, whether that's through grants, allocations from state or federal resources or Metro. It's really trying to show that this is something that we want. Remember, in the TSP, you're looking at a 20-year planning horizon in the future. But it's really, really difficult to get money if something hasn't been adopted into a plan that says, yes, this is something we as a community want and are striving for.
Okay. And speaking of communities, that makes me think of neighborhoods. And both of you talked about the high cost of housing, and that's being caused by a lot of different reasons, whether that's limitations of the urban growth boundary, lack of labor, supply chain issues, the list goes on and on and on and on. But as you both alluded to, House Bill 2001 and Senate Bill 458 goes into effect at the end of June of this year, and some cities, Wilsonville, Tualatin, have already implemented their rules so that they wouldn't have the state guidelines automatically in place. Where do you see that fitting in the residential communities of Oregon City? Duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, row house, townhomes, on every single family residential lot in our community? If you can make it fit.
Yeah, well, you can certainly make it fit. Does that become a housing type that's in high demand? Because remember, there's certain things that we can do as a local jurisdiction or the state or the county or the region, right? But you still have true market forces applied in this situation, whether it's land value, infrastructure costs, what the demand is for which type of housing type. Just because you allow it doesn't mean it's going to happen. Do I think we're going to see a bunch of homes torn down and duplexes, triplexes put up? I don't. I think the values in Oregon City are too high to make that kind of move happen. We are, right, wrong, or indifferent, predominantly a single-family house, traditionally subdivision building community. Our developer is going to come in and find that, and honestly, I think it's going to come down to I can sell a single-family house for X, or I can build a duplex and sell it for Y.
In the same lot.
In that state model. It's not a requirement.
Right.
It's an allowance. Where do I think it'll hit? I think it'll hit in those neighborhoods that have really depressed property and house value relative to the region. Would be my guess, but that's just a guess.
Yeah, it's really going to be fascinating
to
see how creative people can get, because ADUs, accessory dwelling units, have been implemented throughout the Portland area, but you have a limit of 600 to 900 square feet for a dwelling unit under that provision. In this particular case, it's a little bit more wide open.
Mm-hmm. And we've had accessory dwelling units as a permittable use in the code for years. And we haven't seen the demand. Maybe that's changing. Maybe the market will demand something different. But we just haven't really seen it here, throughout our Oregon City community.
Well, prices of land are not going down.
They are not. No.
All right, well, we only have a few minutes left, so I'm going to ask each and every one of you, what is your top priority for 2022?
So, one of them is to really help our historic houses to be open on a schedule, to be professional, to change their model of operation. That's one of the first things. Second thing is to really provide initiatives that will help the small business community grow. Because we have, as I mentioned earlier, we have lost a lot of small businesses due to the pandemic. And it's time that we grow our own. Because you can spend a lot of time chasing companies all over the country. You can blow your budget totally, and there's no guarantees that will pay off. But if you grow your own, the roots of that growth will go deep, and the chances of them relocating is less. And then workforce development. There are a lot of agencies, an alphabet soup of agencies out there that do workforce development, but they do it in silos. And the state has also finally recognized that they have to do something differently than what they've been doing. So they're coming forth with a new idea next month called Future Ready instead of Talent Ready. I wonder where they got that from. But it's time that these entities start working together systemically and start focusing on the client and providing those resources in a systemic way to the client so that young people can actually be trained. You don't have to go to college anymore to make a good living. And and at this point, these young people are not coming in behind their parents into these manufacturing plants or these industrial plants. They're not following their parents because they don't understand that industrial activity and manufacturing has changed. And it looks more like, it's much more, I guess, sophisticated. So even their parents don't know that it's changed. So those will be some priorities of mine. And also the Urban Renewal District, to work with the commission to identify, once they've made the decision, and if they've made the decision to go forward, to identify projects that will further the district and fulfill the promise that it was originally intended.
Great, thank you, James.
You know, I think it's hard to just pick one. As the city manager, I see every department struggles. I see every neighborhood struggles, desires, wants. I think for me, I think homelessness is probably at the top of that list in terms of not only the social impact associated with that for our homeless population, but the impact on our community. Right, wrong, or indifferent, the region, the state has allocated funds. And so the hard part is Oregon City isn't a social service provider. And so it's really, how do you facilitate those partnerships? How do we identify how we can work together under this common goal to start addressing some of these issues that we all see on a daily basis? I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. It is one of the things that our officers, our staff deal with on a daily basis. It is one of the things that we probably get the most calls about. And you know, we finally do have legitimate money that is available. So really it's how do we make sure we utilize those funds in the best way to address some of the needs that we've seen year after year. I don't know, this is my 6th one of these presentations. I've probably talked about it every time. And we've made incremental steps. And like I probably said the first or the second time, mental health, substance abuse, domestic violence, just losing a paycheck, none of them are the same. Every one of these instances is unique. And you know, there is no cookie cutter approach. But somehow we've got to find that way to start moving populations into transitional housing that then leads to wraparound services, that then leads to substance abuse issues, mental health issues, that then you can transition into, you know, longer term housing. I mean, just try to imagine living on the street and then all of a sudden somebody just puts you in a house or an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment. You've been on the street for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, whatever it's been. and then they just put you into a home. It's hard, and it's a struggle, and we just need to recognize that and work with the service providers that have that expertise and bring that partnership together. James hit on urban renewal. That's probably one I've talked about every year I've been up here as well. It would be wonderful to help the commission get to a point where they're comfortable with a plan and then make that decision what they want to do with that plan and move that forward. I agree with James, it is one of the few tools, legitimate tools that we have as a local government to try to impact what our community becomes. And so that would be one of the other priorities. I mean, I could click off the list, Ken, you know, whether it's Blue Heron property, North End development, the Riverwalk project, what happens with the courthouse downtown. There's a lot of issues, but you know, trying to prioritize one or the other. Some are prioritized by opportunity, and we hope to be ready when that opportunity comes and make sure that we can be as successful as possible.
Well, and that's why we're here to support you in all those endeavors. And we appreciate both of you coming today and sharing so much valuable information. I think we all benefit by hearing firsthand where the rubber meets the road. You folks are dealing where the decisions are being made, and the input that our membership can provide you hopefully can help guide some of those conversations with our elected representatives and officials. So again, if we could give a nice warm welcome to
Thank you, everybody.
Tony Konkol and Economic Director Graham. I'll let you guys get off the hot seat here for a minute.
All righty.
So James, I've got to thank you. You're a perfect segue to what I was going to say next. You mentioned workforce development as being one of the most important programs that the region and especially our city needs to focus on. Well, next month, our speaker for our forum will be Bridget Daisy, who heads up workforce development for our local region. She's given a presentation before to the OCBA. I know she's excited to go ahead and update that presentation. I saw the other day where Governor Brown is in her last days in office is trying to get through the short session. It's only a 30-day session this year through the legislature, a workforce development and skills training program. So hopefully we'll get out of the silos and get into a more interconnected approach. We have what's called the Great Resignation that's taking place right now. People, because of the pandemic and a lot of different reasons, they've decided to go another direction in their careers. And we also have had a lot of retirees of the baby boomers that were the skilled craftsmen as plumbers, electricians, the people that actually put things together. So we have another future forum in April that's going to be put on by the manufacturing industry. So we'll be giving you more information about that as we get closer to that month. But with that being said, I think that concludes today's gathering. We thank each and every one of you for coming again. We'll be here on the 22nd of next month. It comes kind of early, but we hope all of you can make it and join us either in person or by Zoom. So go out there and enjoy the sunshine. It's a beautiful day for January. And again, thanks for coming.